In this lesson, we're going to talk about how to solve equations using the quadratic formula. Well, why do we have the quadratic formula? Because not every single problem is factorable. Okay, because if I put up a quadratic that looked like this, if I gave you x squared plus x minus 1, there's no way to factor that because your product would be -1 and your sum would be +1. And the only thing that multiplies for 1 is 1 and 1. And if you need it to be a -1, then that would have to give you -1 and +1. But that would make the sum 0, which is not what we have here. So no, what do we do if something's not factorable? Then we have a different method. So that is why we're going to learn about the quadratic formula. Okay, and in the quadratic formula, it's going to have a few numbers, but a whole bunch of letters. So let's make sure we all remember. In front of x squared is going to be the letter A. In front of x is the letter B. And the plain number, the constant, is the letter C. And just like factoring, you have to make sure all terms are on the same side, that it equals 0 before you start plugging in. So here's the quadratic formula. X equals -b, which -b just stands for opposite of b. And then we have a new symbol. We have a plus over a minus sign. So we call that plus or minus. And then we have square root. Underneath the square root in parentheses, we have b squared minus 4 times a times c. And the whole thing is over 2 times a. Now you do have to work on memorizing the quadratic formula. And the best way to memorize things is usually to music. So if you go into YouTube and you type in quadratic formula songs, there will be several. The most popular one is Row, Row, Row Your Boat or Pop Goes the Weasel. Okay, so if you need help memorizing that, go to YouTube and check out those videos. Otherwise, we're going to talk about how to use it. So on the first one, are all terms on the same side? Yes, check. A is in front of x squared, which is the big 2. B is in front of x, and if there's no number in front of x, make sure you remember the magic little 1. And C is -25. So x equals opposite of b. So if b is 1, opposite is -1. Plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times a, which is 2, times c, which is -25, all over 2 times a, which is 2. Then this part that's under the square root, I'm not going to type the square root yet. I'm going to type the part that's underneath of it. So this part right here, let's type that into your calculator. So open your parentheses, 1, close your parentheses, squared, minus 4 times 2 times -25. And you should get the square root of 201. And on the bottom, 2 times 2 is 4. Okay, so now let's do the square root of 201 on your calculator. So hit your square root button, type in 201, and then we're going to get a decimal, and I'm going to round the decimal to the hundredths. So that's 2 places after the decimal point. So that would be 14.18. From here, we want to split the plus or minus apart to come up with our 2 answers, because remember, highest exponent tells you how many answers. 2. You could only use the quadratic formula with a power of 2. If there's something above a power of 2, you have to be able to do a GCF. If not, no quadratic formula. So here you're going to go -1 plus 14.18 all over 4 and negative 1 minus 14.18 all over 4. If you're going to type these into your calculator all at once, make sure you put the tops in parentheses. And I came up with the following answers: 3.03 and negative 3.80. Okay. Next one. Oh, this one does not equal 0, so we got to move terms. So I'm going to add 2x squared. And then I'm going to subtract 4. So you're looking at 3x squared minus 9x plus 6 equals 0. Now with quadratic formula, you don't have to worry about a GCF unless it's a letter. If it's a number, we don't care because we're just going to plug the numbers into the formula, no big deal. So we don't have to worry about the fact that all of these are divisible by 3. We don't care. We're just going to go list out A is 3, B is negative 9, and C is 6. So opposite of B, we'll switch negative 9 to positive 9. Plus or minus square root of regular B, which is negative 9 squared. Super important if you're using your calculator to always put negative numbers in parentheses with powers, because otherwise it'll give you the wrong answer. Minus 4 times A, which is 3, times C, which is 6, all over 2 times A, which is 3. So once again, type in your calculator, open parentheses, negative 9, close my parentheses, squared, minus 4 times 3 times 6. And I got the square root of 9. And then on the bottom, 2 times 3 is 6. Now take the square root of 9 on your calculator, and the square root of 9 is 3. And then we're going to split our plus or minus. So 9 plus 3 over 6. 9 minus 3 over 6. Remember, if you're going to type this in at once on your calculators, put the top in parentheses. Otherwise, your calculator will give you the wrong answers. And I came up with the following answers. The first one gave me 2, and the second one gave me 1. Now, when you look at this problem, on problem 1, do you notice that my answers were decimals? And then on problem 2, do you notice my answers turned out to be nice, neat, whole numbers, not anything I had to round? Anytime that happens, that technically tells you that's a problem that could have been factored. So you could use the quadratic formula on any problem that you can factor because quadratic formula works for everything. Factoring only works for certain ones, but quadratic formula, everything. All right, once again, let's move things around. So I'm going to start by subtracting 2x. And then I'm going to subtract 5. So 2x squared minus 6x minus 2 equals 0. A is 2, B is negative 6, and C is negative 2. So opposite of B is positive 6, plus or minus regular B, which is negative 6 squared, minus 4 times A, which is 2, times C, which is negative 2, all over 2 times A, which is 2. Type the part that's underneath the square root into your calculator. So when I typed that in, I got 52. And on the bottom, 2 times 2 is 4. Take the square root of 52 on your calculator, and it's going to give you a decimal. I'm going to round that out 2 places, so 7.21. So then I'm going to go 6 plus 7.21 over 4, and 6 minus 7.21 over 4. And if I type that into my calculator, I will come up with 3.30 and negative 0.3. Okay, last one. Ooh, what makes the last one a little unique is you'll notice it doesn't have 3 terms. It only has 2 terms. So it has an a term because that's x squared, and it has a c term because of the plane number. But does everybody notice that we're missing b? And if you're missing a letter, that just means that letter is 0. So a is 4, b is 0 because there is no middle term, and c is negative 6. All right, here we go. Opposite of b. Well, 0 isn't really considered positive or negative, so it just stays as 0. Square root of 0 squared minus 4 times negative 6 all over 2 times 4. Okay, type in the part that's underneath the square root. And when I type that in, I got 96. And on the bottom, 2 times 4 is 8. Take the square root of 96. And I got a decimal, so round it off. 9.80 over 8. Split your plus or minuses apart. And then type that into the calculator, and I came up with 1.23 as my first answer and negative 1.23 as my second answer. Thanks.